The first thing my father placed on my desk was not a house key. It was a lawsuit. The paper landed beside my open textbook, close enough to touch the steam rising from my cup of cheap noodles. My apartment was so small that when both of my parents stepped inside, there was nowhere for the air to go. My mattress was against one wall. My second-hand desk leaned under the window. One towel hung behind the bathroom door. That was my whole life. My mother looked around like she had walked into a public restroom. "So this is where you've been hiding," she said. My father did not look at me for more than a second. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a thick stack of papers, and pushed them across the desk. "You have gone too far, Haley." I stared at the words on the first page, but they did not make sense at first. My name was there. My grandmother's name was there. My parents' names were there too, printed in cold black letters like strangers on opposite sides of a war. Then I saw the phrase, "Financial elder abuse." My hand went numb. I was 18 years old, standing in a studio apartment with a hot plate, a library schedule taped to the wall, and a bank account that still made me check the price of bread before buying it. And my parents had come to tell the world I was a thief. Not their daughter. A thief. My mother crossed her arms, her bracelet clicking softly against her watch. She had dressed nicely for this. Full makeup. Smooth hair. A cream coat that probably cost more than everything in my room. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she said. "After everything this family has done for you." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because for a second, I saw the whole thing at once. The bedroom. The boxes. The forgotten birthdays. The silence after I left. The way they could throw me away, then still come back angry that I had not stayed where they dumped me. My father tapped the papers with 2 fingers. "You manipulated my mother. You got into her head. You took money from a confused old woman." "She isn't confused," I said. My voice came out softer than I wanted, but it did not shake. His jaw tightened. "Do not speak to me like you understand this better than adults." There it was again. That old family rule. When they needed me quiet, I was mature. When they needed me small, I was a child. My mother glanced at the mattress on the floor. "You always wanted attention. Now look what you've done to get it." I looked at her then. Really looked. The woman who had once told me I was lucky because I was easy. The woman who could make a full emergency out of my sister's headache but point me toward the medicine cabinet when I had a fever. The woman who had not called me once after I walked out of their house. Not once. 3 months earlier, I had come home from a school trip with my body burning and my head splitting open. I remember the bus windows fogged from everyone breathing in the cold. I remember pressing my forehead against the glass and counting the streets until home, thinking only of my bed. My bed. That was what I wanted more than anything. I dragged my suitcase up the front steps, unlocked the door, and stepped into a house that smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh paint. No one came to greet me. No one asked how the trip was. From somewhere upstairs, music was playing. I pulled my suitcase behind me, one step at a time, and opened my bedroom door. For a moment, I thought I was on the wrong floor. My blue comforter was gone. My desk was gone. The little bookshelf I had bought at a yard sale was gone. My school certificates were no longer taped crookedly above my lamp. My clothes were not in the closet. My pillow was not on the bed. There was no bed. In the middle of the room stood my sister Clara's easel. A tall white ring light glowed in the corner like an eye. Canvases leaned against the wall. Paint tubes covered a rolling cart. A soft pink rug sat where my mattress had been. Clara had even hung string lights across the window. It was not my room anymore. It had been cleaned of me. Downstairs, my mother was in the kitchen scrolling on her phone. She did not look surprised to see me. She looked annoyed that I had interrupted something. "You're back," she said. I stood there gripping the banister. "Where's my room?" She finally looked up. Clara needed a proper studio. You know how important her portfolio is. "My room," I said again. My father's voice came from the living room. "Don't start, Haley." I walked to the garage before anyone could stop me. Everything I owned was there. Not stacked carefully. Not packed with love. Just shoved into damp cardboard boxes beside old paint cans and a trash bag full of broken decorations. My winter clothes were half hanging out of one box. My notebooks were bent. A pair of shoes lay on the concrete, one lace caught under the recycling bin. There was a smell in that garage. Wet paper. Gasoline. Dust. I stood over those boxes and understood something so simple it felt unreal. They had not made space for Clara. They had removed me. My father appeared behind me. "You can sort through it later," he said. "Your sister has a deadline." I turned around slowly. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" He looked irritated, as if I had asked a foolish question. "There's the couch until we figure something out. Or you can stay in the garage if you need privacy. You're always saying you like quiet." I waited for him to smile. He did not. My mother came to the doorway and sighed. "Haley, please don't make this ugly. You're 18. You're independent. Clara is sensitive. She needs support right now." That word followed Clara everywhere. Support. When Clara wanted art lessons, she needed support. When Clara wanted a car, she needed support. When Clara wanted a weekend trip to feel inspired, she needed support. When I needed a dentist appointment, my mother handed me the insurance card and told me to call before noon because the office closed early. I did not scream in the garage. I did not beg them to put my bed back. I walked inside, took the house key off my keychain, and placed it on the kitchen counter. It made the smallest sound. A little click against the stone. My mother looked at the key, then at me. "What are you doing?" I was still wearing my school trip hoodie. My throat hurt. My suitcase was by the stairs. My whole life was in boxes beside the trash. "I'm making it easier for you," I said. Then I walked out. No one followed. That part still comes back to me sometimes. Not the room. Not the boxes. The fact that no footsteps came behind mine. No one called my name from the porch. No car door opened. No headlights followed me down the street. I walked past houses with warm windows. Past the park where Clara once had outdoor birthday photos while my father held a reflector and my mother fixed her hair. Past the library where I worked weekends. Past everything familiar until the fever and cold finally pushed me down onto a bus bench. The city lights turned blurry. I had my phone, my student ID, and the clothes on my body. That was all. I kept looking at my screen, waiting for a call. Mom. Dad. Even Clara. Nothing. The phone stayed dark. That was when I finally cried. Not loudly. I had learned not to be loud. The tears just slipped down my face while cars passed and strangers walked by pretending not to see the girl shaking on the bench. I cried for the birthday when I came home from a double shift and found $20 on the counter with a sticky note. Happy birthday, honey. I cried for the awards night when I won 2 scholarships and sat beside my best friend B's parents because mine were at Clara's little gallery event. I cried for the flu in 10th grade when my temperature was so high the walls looked like they were bending, and my mother stood in my doorway just long enough to say, "You know where the Tylenol is." I cried for every time they called me strong when they meant alone. Finally, I called B. She answered on the second ring. "Haley? Aren't you supposed to be home?" I tried to speak, but all that came out was air. "Where are you?" Her voice changed immediately. "Bus bench," I whispered. "By the library. Don't move." She arrived wearing pajama pants and an old sweatshirt, her hair pulled into a messy knot. She did not ask for an explanation in the street. She just opened the passenger door, saw my face, and said, "Get in." At her apartment, she wrapped me in a blanket, made tea, and sat on the floor across from me like she had all the time in the world. Only then did I tell her. I told her about the studio. The boxes. My father's voice. My mother's phone. The key on the counter. B's mouth tightened. "That couch is terrible," she said quietly, "but it's yours for as long as you need." I stayed there 2 weeks. I tried not to take up space. I washed dishes before she got home. I folded blankets. I bought groceries I could not afford because a part of me was still trained to believe that needing help made me a problem. B never complained. But my phone never rang. After the first week, I stopped sleeping with it beside my face. After the second week, I stopped checking. They knew I was gone. They knew I had left sick, with no suitcase, no wallet, and no plan. They simply did not care enough to ask where I slept. Or maybe they did know. Maybe the empty room upstairs made the house easier for them. Maybe my absence was just one more thing Clara needed. I could not stay on B's couch forever. She would have let me, but I could feel the old panic rising every time she paid rent or bought food. So one morning, I took the bus across town to the place I had avoided because it hurt too much to see someone else abandoned. My grandmother lived in a senior home that smelled like boiled vegetables, disinfectant, and old carpet. My father's mother. Margaret. To everyone else, she was a small elderly woman with thin hands and sharp eyes. To me, she was the only person in my family who had ever looked at me like I was in the room. When I walked in, she was sitting by the window with a mystery novel open on her lap. She looked up. "Well," she said, "you look like something the cat refused to drag in." That was Grandma. No soft opening. No fake sweetness. I sat in the plastic chair beside her bed. She closed the book. "You're not at home." I tried to smile. "I'm staying with B for a little while." Her eyes narrowed. "Try again." I looked down at my hands. "Grandma." "Haley." That was all she said. My name. Like an order. Like permission. And I broke. I told her everything. The school trip. The fever. The missing room. Clara's easel. The boxes in the garage. The key I left on the counter. The 2 weeks of silence. When I finished, the room felt too still. Grandma looked past me toward the beige wall. Her hands rested calmly on top of the blanket. I thought she was disappointed. I thought she would say I should go home. That parents make mistakes. That family is family. That I should apologize because I had caused a scene. Instead, she turned back to me and said one word. Good. I blinked. What? Good, she said again. You finally left that house. I stared at her. She reached toward the drawer beside her bed. Top dresser drawer. Bring me the key. My hands moved before my mind did. I found a little key on a ring with a faded red tag and gave it to her. She unlocked the drawer of her nightstand and pulled out a thick brown envelope. It looked old. The corners were soft from being handled many times. She placed it in my lap. This is yours. I did not open it. Grandma, I can't take anything from you. You haven't taken anything. I am giving it. Her voice had changed. It was still quiet, but there was steel under it. Inside were papers. A bank book. A business card. A letter with my name written in her uneven handwriting. And keys I did not recognize. What is this? I whispered. A door, she said. One they can't lock from the other side. I looked at the bank book and felt the room tilt. It was not a fortune. It was not the kind of money people whisper about in movies. But for a girl with nothing but a library paycheck and one pair of jeans, it was enough to breathe. Enough for a deposit. Enough for rent. Enough for food. Enough for a start. I shook my head. No. This is too much. Grandma gave me a look that made me feel 12 years old. Your grandfather saved carefully. I saved after him. I know exactly what I have, exactly what I spend, and exactly what I want done with what is mine. But Dad. Your father, she cut in, has spent his life counting money he did not earn. I went still. She leaned back against her pillow. Do you know how many times he has visited me in 2 years? I did not answer. 4, she said. 2 birthdays. 2 Christmas visits. 30 minutes each. Your mother smiled at the staff like she was touring a hotel. Your father checked his watch. I felt shame rise in me, though I had done nothing wrong. They told us you wanted to move here. Grandma laughed once. There was no joy in it. They told people many things. That does not make them true. She looked at the envelope between us. I started this 5 years ago. Before this place. Before your room became a studio. Before your parents decided I was easier to manage behind a visitor sign and desk. I saw what they were doing to you. My throat tightened. They didn't hit me, I said, because some old part of me still wanted to defend them. Grandma's face softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. Some people don't need to raise a hand to make a child disappear. I looked down. The envelope blurred. She reached for my wrist. They trained you to survive on crumbs and then praised you for not asking for bread. That is not love, Haley. No one had ever said it that clearly. Not love. I had felt it. I had lived inside the shape of it. But hearing it spoken made something in me loosen and hurt at the same time. There is a lawyer, she said. Mr. Cohen. Call him. He set up the trust. It is legal. It is protected. It is for your education and your living expenses. You are 18 now. You can use it. What if they find out? Grandma's grip tightened. Then they find out that I am not dead yet, not confused yet, and not finished yet. The next day, I met Mr. Cohen in a small office above a bakery. He was an older man with silver hair, a careful voice, and a desk so neat it looked untouched. He did not speak to me like I was a child. He showed me every paper. He explained the trust. He explained the bank account. He explained what I could use and what I could not touch without approval. "Your grandmother was very specific," he said. "Housing, school, safety, stability. Those were her words." "Why me?" I asked. He took off his glasses. "Because she trusts you." That should have felt simple. Instead, it felt enormous. That same week, I found my apartment. It was one room above a row of old shops. The hallway smelled like onions from the restaurant downstairs. The shower dripped. The yellow paint on the walls looked tired. The window stuck when I tried to open it. But when the landlord handed me the key, my hand closed around it like it was gold. The first night, I slept on the floor with a blanket from B and a pillow I bought at a discount store. I had no bed. No couch. No table. A hot plate sat on the counter beside a pack of noodles. But the door had a lock. And for the first time in my life, no one in that room could give my space away. I started over quietly. I kept my job at the library. I enrolled in community college. I bought a cheap mattress online. I found a desk someone had left on the curb and cleaned it with lemon spray until the room smelled less like dust. Every Sunday, I visited Grandma. Sometimes we played cards. Sometimes she complained about the pudding. Sometimes I read to her because she said my voice made the room less boring. She never treated me like a rescue project. She treated me like someone building. For 3 months, I almost believed I was safe. Then my parents found me. They arrived at my door dressed like they were going to court before I even knew there would be one. My father's briefcase snapped open on my desk. My mother's eyes traveled over my apartment with open disgust. And the lawsuit sat between us. "You are going to return every cent," my father said, "and we are going to make sure my mother is protected from you." "Protected?" I repeated. My mother stepped closer. "You turned her against us." I thought of Grandma sitting alone in that beige room, waiting through birthdays and holidays for a son who only showed up long enough to say he had come. "No," I said. "You left her alone." I visited. My father's face darkened. Careful. That one word was supposed to put me back in place. It had worked when I was 12. It had worked when I was 15. It had worked when I still believed a father's anger meant I had done something wrong. But now I was standing in a room I paid rent on, with my own key in my pocket and my grandmother's trust protected by law. My fear was still there. But it was not alone anymore. My mother gave a sharp little smile. "The court will see what you are. A jealous girl who hated her sister and went after an old woman's money." For a second, Clara's studio flashed in my mind. The pink rug. The ring light. My boxes in the garage. I looked at my mother. Did Clara like the room? The smile fell from her face. My father slapped his palm on the desk. "This is not a game." "No," I said. "It never was." He gathered his papers, leaving my copy behind. "We will see you in court." I picked up the summons. For the first time, I met his eyes without looking away. "Yes," I said. "You will." They expected me to collapse after the door shut. And I did. The moment they were gone, my knees gave out. I slid down against the door, clutching those papers until the edges bent in my hands. Financial elder abuse. Undue influence. Mental incompetence. Emergency guardianship. Those words were bigger than me. They were cold and official and dangerous. My parents were not just trying to scare me. They were trying to take control of Grandma's money, Grandma's choices, Grandma's life. And they were using me as the reason. I called Mr. Cohen first, but his office had closed. I left a message so broken I could barely understand myself. Then I took the bus to the senior home. The whole ride, the lawsuit sat in my backpack like a stone. How was I supposed to tell her? How do you tell an old woman that her son is trying to have her declared unfit because she loved the wrong granddaughter? When I reached her room, she was watching a game show with the volume too loud. "You're pale," she said, turning it off. "Either you failed math or somebody died." I handed her the papers. She put on her reading glasses. I watched every line cross her face. She read the accusations against me. She read the claim that she was confused. She read my father's name. My mother's name. The request for emergency control over her accounts. When she finished, she folded the papers neatly. Too neatly. Then she looked at me. "My son always was greedy," she said. But I did not know he was this stupid. "Grandma, I'm sorry." "No. I took the money. If I give it back." "No." The word cracked through the room. A nurse passing in the hall glanced inside, then kept walking. Grandma sat straighter. She looked small in that bed, but suddenly the room belonged to her. "You listen to me. You did not cause this. Their greed caused this. Their fear caused this. They thought I was helpless. They thought you were alone. They were wrong on both counts." I wiped my face with my sleeve. "What do we do?" She swung her feet toward the floor. "Get my black shoes." I stared at her. "What?" "My good black shoes. And my purse." "Grandma, it's evening. I know what time it is. I also know when a war has been brought to my door." I helped her sit up. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her cardigan, but her eyes were clear and bright. "Tomorrow morning," she said, "you are taking me to Dr. Patel. If Mark wants to call me confused, he can do it after my doctor puts the truth on paper." A tiny spark opened inside me. "And after that?" I asked. "After that," Grandma said, reaching for the lawsuit again, "we go to Mr. Cohen. Because I kept every letter. Every note. Every dated instruction. 5 years of proof." She tapped the stack with one thin finger. "They brought paper to scare you," she said. "We will bring paper to bury their lie." By 9 the next morning, Grandma was sitting in Dr. Patel's office with her black purse on her lap and a look on her face that made the receptionist stop asking questions. Dr. Patel had been her doctor for 10 years. She was a calm woman with silver glasses and the kind of voice that made people tell the truth without meaning to. Grandma handed her the lawsuit. "My son thinks I'm losing my mind," she said. "I'd like you to disappoint him." Dr. Patel read the first page. Then the second. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "Margaret," she said carefully, "are you willing to complete a full cognitive evaluation today?" I came dressed for it. The test took almost an hour. Grandma answered questions about the date, the year, her medicines, her finances, the name of the facility where she lived, the names of the people who visited her, and the name of the people who didn't. Dr. Patel asked her to remember 3 words. Apple. Table. Penny. Grandma repeated them once, then gave me a look. If this is the hard part, I'm suing you next. For the first time since my parents had knocked on my door, I almost smiled. She drew a clock. She counted backward. She explained how she paid her bills. She corrected Dr. Patel when the doctor forgot the name of one of her medications. She remembered the 3 words before Dr. Patel even asked for them. At the end, Dr. Patel set down her pen. You are not showing signs of confusion, she said. Your memory is strong. Your reasoning is clear. You are fully able to make your own decisions. Grandma lifted her chin. Put that in writing. I will, Dr. Patel said. And I'll testify if needed. Grandma reached for her purse. Good. Haley, help me up. We have a lawyer to visit. Mr. Cohen was waiting for us with coffee, tea, and the kind of calm face people only have when they have already found the weak spot in someone else's attack. He read Dr. Patel's notes, then looked at Grandma over the top of his glasses. This helps us a great deal. Grandma snorted. It does not help us. It ends that nonsense. It ends part of it, he said. The court still needs to see why this transfer was valid and why their claims are false. Then he opened a thick binder. I had seen school binders, work binders, library binders. This one felt different. Every page inside it was a piece of time. Letters. Emails. Copies of signed instructions. Notes from meetings between Grandma and Mr. Cohen. Some of them were dated 5 years before I ever left home. Before the senior home. Before the bedroom. Before the lawsuit. Before my parents had any idea I would become a problem. Mr. Cohen turned the binder toward me. Your grandmother was very thorough. I looked at the first letter. My dear Mr. Cohen, I am worried about my granddaughter Haley. She is expected to need nothing. That is not the same as being cared for. I stopped reading. Grandma watched me from the chair beside the window. I didn't write it to make you cry, she said. I wrote it because somebody needed to tell the truth while there was still time. Mr. Cohen gently turned a few more pages. This shows the trust was planned long before any alleged influence. It shows Margaret's reasons in her own words. It shows she understood her assets, her family situation, and her wishes. He looked at me. And it shows you did not manipulate her. The word still burned. Manipulate. My parents had taken the one clean thing in my life and tried to cover it in dirt. Mr. Cohen placed another folder on the desk. I also spoke with the senior home. Several staff members are willing to provide statements. They know who visited. They know who called. They know who showed up. Grandma folded her hands. Mark is going to hate that. Yes, Mr. Cohen said. He probably will. He was not smiling. That made it better. For the next few days, truth moved quietly. A nurse signed a statement saying she had seen me every Sunday. The activities director wrote that Grandma chose her own visitors and handled her own affairs. Dr. Patel sent a formal report. Mr. Cohen filed our response with the court. My parents kept calling, but I did not answer. The first time my mother's name lit up my phone, I stared at it until it stopped. Then a message came through. You are making this worse. Another one came 10 minutes later. Think carefully before you destroy this family. I turned the phone face down. There was no family left to destroy. The day of the hearing, the courthouse smelled like old wood, paper, and rain-soaked coats. My shoes pinched because they were the only dress shoes I owned. My blouse came from a thrift store. I had ironed it twice and still worried one sleeve looked wrinkled. Grandma wore a blue suit and pearl earrings. She sat in her wheelchair like a queen who had agreed to visit a lesser court. "Stop touching your sleeve," she whispered. "I can't." "You can. You are not on trial. Their lie is." Across the room, my parents sat with their lawyer. My father wore a dark suit and a hard expression. My mother had a tissue in her hand before anything had even started. She dabbed at the corner of her eye, though her makeup stayed perfect. There was an empty chair beside them. Clara had not come. Some part of me had expected that. Clara liked applause, not consequences. The bailiff called everyone to rise. The judge entered, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience in her face. She read the file for a moment, then looked up. "This is a petition for emergency guardianship and a claim of financial elder abuse?" My parents' lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Proceed." He spoke for a long time. He called Grandma vulnerable. He called me troubled. He said I had appeared suddenly in her life, isolated her from her loving family, and pressured her into moving funds for my own benefit. Suddenly, I almost turned around to look at the nurse behind us, the woman who had watched me bring Grandma crossword books every week since I was 16. Mr. Cohen touched his pen once against the table. A tiny signal. Wait. So I waited. My father stared straight ahead, jaw locked. My mother lowered her tissue at just the right moments. Their lawyer painted me as greedy, desperate, unstable. He described my apartment like proof of bad character. He said my parents had been deeply concerned when they discovered I had been living alone. Deeply concerned. They had not known where I was until they wanted money back. When he finished, the courtroom felt heavy. Then Mr. Cohen stood. He did not raise his voice. He did not act angry. That was what made him dangerous. "Your Honor, the claims made today are not only unsupported, they are directly contradicted by medical evidence, witness testimony, and 5 years of documented planning by my client." The judge leaned back. "Go ahead." Mr. Cohen began with Grandma. He submitted Dr. Patel's evaluation. The judge read it in silence. Her eyes moved across the page. Once, her eyebrows lifted. Then she looked at my parents' lawyer. "This doctor has treated Margaret for 10 years?" "Yes, Your Honor," Mr. Cohen said. "And she finds Margaret fully competent?" "Completely competent." The judge looked back down. "She also notes strong memory, clear reasoning, and no signs of cognitive decline." My mother stopped dabbing her eyes. My father shifted in his chair. Mr. Cohen called Dr. Patel next. She spoke clearly. She did not soften the truth. "Margaret understands her finances," she said. "She understands her family relationships. She understands the trust. She is not confused, pressured, or mentally impaired." My parents' lawyer tried to press her. "Isn't it possible for an elderly person to seem clear one day and confused another?" Dr. Patel looked at him. "Anything is possible in medicine. But in Margaret's case, I have no clinical evidence supporting that claim." That was the first crack. Then came the nurse. Her name was Jenna. She wore plain clothes instead of scrubs, and she looked nervous until she sat down. Then she saw Grandma and straightened. Mr. Cohen asked, "How often did Haley visit Margaret?" "At least once a week," Jenna said. "Sometimes more." "And how often did Mark and Karen visit?" Jenna looked uncomfortable. "Rarely." "Can you be more specific?" "In 2 years, I remember a few holiday visits. Maybe 4 or 5 times." My father's face turned red. Jenna kept going. Haley brought books. She played cards with her. She helped her sort mail sometimes, but Margaret made her own decisions. Margaret is not isolated. Haley is the one who showed up. The courtroom went very quiet. My mother's tissue was now crushed in her fist. Then Mr. Cohen opened the binder. "This is the clearest evidence, Your Honor. 5 years of correspondence between Margaret and my office regarding a protected support trust for Haley." He handed copies to the judge. The judge read the first letter. Then another. Then another. No one spoke. The silence was different from the silence in my parents' house. That silence had made me disappear. This silence was making the truth visible. The judge paused at one page. "Mr. Cohen," she said, "this letter is dated 3 years before Margaret entered the senior home." "Yes, Your Honor." "And she states here that she is worried her son may attempt to control her assets in the future?" "Yes." My father turned toward Grandma for the first time. She did not look at him. The judge continued reading. Her face changed slowly. Not into surprise. Into disgust. Finally, she removed her glasses. "Mrs. Margaret, do you wish to say anything?" Grandma rolled her wheelchair forward slightly. Her voice was thin, but the room caught every word. "I gave my granddaughter help because she needed help. I did it with my own money, my own mind, and my own signature. My son did not visit me when I was lonely. He did not ask what I wanted. But when he smelled money moving away from him, suddenly I became a confused old woman." My father stood halfway. "Mother." "Sit down," the judge said. He sat. Grandma looked at him then. One long look. "You put me away because I became inconvenient," she said. "You ignored that child because she did not make enough noise. And now you want the court to punish her for being loved by someone you forgot." My chest hurt. Not from fear. From being defended so openly that I did not know where to put the feeling. The judge tapped her pen once. Then she looked at my parents. "I have seen real elder abuse in this courtroom," she said. "I have seen families broken by manipulation, neglect, and theft. This is not that." My mother's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge's voice sharpened. "What I see here is a competent woman who planned carefully, a granddaughter who maintained consistent loving contact, and petitioners who appear to have brought a reckless, baseless case after discovering they were not in control of the money." My father's lawyer looked down at his papers. The judge kept going. "You have accused your daughter of a serious financial crime with no credible evidence. You have questioned your mother's mind in the face of medical proof. You have wasted court time and caused harm." She signed the order. "The petition is dismissed with prejudice. Legal fees for the defendants will be paid by the petitioners." My mother gasped. "With prejudice?" my father said. The judge looked at him coldly. "That means you do not get to bring this again because you are unhappy with the answer." The gavel came down. It was not loud. But it ended everything. My parents sat frozen at their table. Their lawyer shut his briefcase with a sharp click and leaned toward them. I could not hear every word, but I heard enough. "You lied to me." Then he walked away. For a moment, my father looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Not sorry. Not broken. Just exposed. My mother turned toward me. Her face twisted like she wanted to speak, to accuse, to pull me back into the old pattern one last time. I did not give her the chance. I pushed Grandma's wheelchair past their table and kept walking. In the hallway, Grandma reached back and touched my hand. "Breathe," she said. I did. For the first time in months, air reached the bottom of my lungs. The court case did not end the damage in one day. That is not how truth works. Truth is more like water under a door. At first, it seems small. Then everything on the other side gets wet. The first call came from my Aunt Susan. Her voice was careful. "Haley, your father told us you took advantage of Grandma." I stood in my apartment, looking at the wall where my class schedule hung. "The court record is public," I said. "You can read the ruling." There was a long pause. "Public?" "Yes." 2 days later, she went to the courthouse with my uncle. They read the judge's order. They read Dr. Patel's report. They read Jenna's statement. They read Grandma's letters. After that, the family stopped calling my parents for their version. They started calling each other. My father tried to say the judge was biased. My mother said I had humiliated them on purpose. But their words had nowhere to stand. Paper had beaten performance. Then Grandma changed everything else. In Mr. Cohen's office, she signed a new medical proxy. "Haley," she said. Mr. Cohen nodded and marked the page. She signed a new power of attorney. "Haley." Then came the will. I sat very still. Grandma took the pen from Mr. Cohen and looked at me. "I know you don't want to hear this," she said, "but I want it done while my hand can still write." "Grandma." "No. You will not make this tender and difficult. I have made my decision." She signed slowly. "My son spent his inheritance when he tried to steal my voice," she said. "Your mother helped him. Clara can ask them for whatever they promised her. I am finished feeding people who only remember me when they are hungry." The pen moved across the last line. "It all goes to you." I could barely speak. "I don't need all that." "I know," she said. "That is why I can trust you with it." That was Grandma's way. She never gave softness without truth beside it. Months passed. I stayed in school. I kept working at the library. I still lived in my little apartment because the trust felt like something sacred, not something to waste. I used what I needed. Rent. Books. Bus fare. Food that was not always noodles. The rest, I left alone. Then one afternoon, a thick envelope arrived from the state university. I stood by my mailbox for a full minute before opening it. Full academic scholarship. I read the line 3 times. Then I ran. Not walked. Ran. I ran to the bus stop, rode across town, and nearly burst into Grandma's room without knocking. "I got in," I said, holding up the letter. "Grandma, I got in. Full scholarship." Her hands flew to her mouth. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she cried. Grandma, who could face a courtroom without blinking, cried over a university letter in a room that smelled like hand lotion and tea. "I knew it," she said. I knew you just needed a door that opened. The school was 3 hours away. I almost refused. I told her I could not leave her. I told her my parents might try something again. I told her weekly visits mattered. I told her too many reasons that sounded noble but were really fear wearing nice clothes. Grandma listened until I ran out of words. Then she said, "No. No? You are not building a smaller life to keep me company. But we will move me." I stared at her. "There's a care home 5 minutes from that campus," she said. I already asked Mr. Cohen to look into it. Of course she had. The new place had wide windows and a garden with stone benches. The hallways smelled like coffee instead of bleach. Her room caught morning sun. When we moved her in, she sat by the window and looked outside. "Well," she said, "it's not terrible." From Grandma, that was a standing ovation. My new life began in pieces. A dorm room with a narrow bed. A campus library that felt like a church made of books. Classes that scared me. Professors who knew my name. A work-study job shelving journals. Every evening, after my shift, I walked 5 minutes to Grandma's care home. Sometimes I did homework beside her bed while she watched game shows. Sometimes she asked about my classes. Sometimes she fell asleep while I read, and I kept reading anyway because the room felt peaceful. I made friends. Real ones. People who asked where I was if I missed dinner. People who remembered my birthday. People who did not praise me for needing nothing, but showed up when I needed something. The nightmares faded. At first, I dreamed my parents were outside my door with another stack of papers. Then those dreams came less often. Then one morning I woke up and realized I had not thought about them before breakfast. That felt like freedom too. Years moved faster than I expected. I graduated with honors. When I crossed the stage, I looked into the crowd and found B first, cheering with both hands in the air. Then I found Grandma in the front row, wearing her blue suit and pearls again. She clapped so hard one of the nurses beside her had to steady the wheelchair. I smiled so wide my face hurt. For once, there was no empty chair in my heart. The people who mattered were there. After graduation, the university hired me as a research librarian. My first real job. My first real salary. My first apartment with a bedroom that had a door. A real kitchen. A balcony just big enough for one chair and a pot of basil. On moving day, I put my key in the lock and stood there for a moment before opening the door. The sound was small. But it meant everything. Grandma grew weaker after that. Her mind stayed bright, but her body got tired. Some Sundays, we played cards. Other Sundays, I just held her hand while she slept. One afternoon, we sat on the patio watching birds fight over crumbs. "Are you happy?" she asked. I looked at the garden. At her hand in mine. At the late sun touching the edge of her white hair. "Yes," I said. "I really am." "Good," she whispered. Then I did my job. A few months later, the care home called after midnight. I knew before the nurse finished speaking. I drove through empty streets with my coat over my pajamas. Her room was dim when I arrived. The machines were quiet. Her breathing was light, like she was already far away. I sat beside her and took her hand. "I'm here," I said. "I'm safe. You got me out." Her fingers moved just a little. "My girl," she whispered. Those were the last words I heard from her. She passed before sunrise. Grief did not break me the way I thought it would. It hurt more than anything I had ever felt, but underneath the pain was something steady. She had not left me empty. She had left me built. The funeral was small. B came. Mr. Cohen came. Nurses from both care homes came. A few people from the library came too. We buried her beside my grandfather on a gray morning with wet grass under our shoes. My parents did not come. Clara did not come. No flowers. No call. No message. Mr. Cohen had notified them. He had sent everything properly. Death certificate. Will notice. All of it. Their answer was silence. I thought it would hurt more. It did not. A week later, Mr. Cohen called me to his office. There were final papers to sign. The house Grandma had once owned, the accounts she had protected, the remaining trust, all of it was mine now. It felt too big for my hands. Before I left, Mr. Cohen opened a drawer. She asked me to give you this after everything was settled. It was a sealed envelope. My name was written on it in Grandma's shaky handwriting. I opened it in my car because I knew I could not make it home. My dearest Haley. If you are reading this, then I have gone where old women go when they are tired and finished arguing with fools. I laughed through the first tear. Do not waste your life proving anything to people who chose not to see you. They called you easy. I called you strong. They called you jealous. I called you hungry for love, which is not a crime. They thought money was the gift. It was not. The gift was permission. Permission to leave. Permission to live. Permission to stop knocking on doors that were locked from the inside. You gave me more than you know. You visited me when others forgot I was still alive. You made me laugh. You made my last years mine again. Be happy. That will be enough. I love you. Grandma. I sat in the parking lot until the sun moved across the windshield. Then I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my purse. Not like something fragile. Like something true. The rest of the family learned what happened piece by piece. Aunt Susan told Uncle David. Uncle David told cousins. Someone found the court record. Someone read the judge's words out loud at a family dinner where my parents were sitting at the table. I was not there, but I heard about it later. My father stormed out. My mother said people were twisting things. But the room had already changed. Relatives stopped inviting them. Holiday calls faded. The people who had believed their sad story now knew the ending had been edited. They became what they had tried to make me. Unseen. Uncalled. Left outside the warm rooms. I did not celebrate it. I did not need to. Truth had done all the work. About a year after Grandma's funeral, I saw Clara. It happened in a craft store. I was looking for a frame for a photo of Grandma and me from graduation day. I turned into the checkout lane and there she was, wearing a red employee vest, scanning fake flowers for a customer. For a second, we both froze. Clara looked older than she should have. Not in years. In disappointment. Her hair was pulled back messily. There was paint under one fingernail, but no glow around her anymore. No parents circling her. No ring light. No room built around her wants. Just a tired woman behind a register. Her eyes dropped first. She pretended not to recognize me. I stood there holding the frame. A younger version of me would have wanted that moment. She would have wanted to say something sharp. Something about my room. Something about the boxes. Something about how it felt to be ordinary after being treated like the sun. But the words did not come. Because looking at Clara did not feel like victory. It felt like seeing someone who had been fed the same poison from a prettier spoon. She had chosen her place in that house. She had enjoyed it. She had let me disappear because my absence made more room for her. That was true. But she had also tied her whole life to people who only loved her when she performed the role they gave her. And when their world cracked, she had nothing solid under her feet. I put the frame back on the shelf. I did not buy it. I did not speak. I walked out into the clean afternoon air and kept going. That was the day I understood that peace is not always a warm feeling. Sometimes peace is the moment you no longer need the scene you once imagined. I do not speak to my parents. I do not speak to Clara. Not because I spend my nights angry. Not because I am waiting for another apology that will never come. I don't speak to them because locked doors are allowed to stay locked. My life is quiet now. I wake up early. I make coffee in a kitchen no one can take from me. I go to a library where people ask for my help and listen when I answer. I come home to an apartment with books on the shelves, a plant on the balcony, and Grandma's letter in a wooden box beside my bed. Sometimes, when I turn my key in the lock, I still remember the little click of the key I left on my parents' counter. Back then, I thought I was giving up my home. I was really giving up a place that had never been one. For years, they called me independent because it was easier than caring for me. They called me mature because it excused their absence. They called me jealous because I noticed the difference between being loved and being tolerated. But my grandmother saw the truth. She saw a girl being erased and handed her a way out. Not just money. A way out. That was the real inheritance. The permission to leave without guilt. The courage to stop begging cold people for warmth. The understanding that blood can explain where you came from, but it does not get to decide where you stay. Some families do not break you with one loud act. They do it slowly. They take your room, then your voice, then your right to need anything at all. They teach you to feel grateful for crumbs and ashamed for wanting a seat at the table. But survival is not selfish. Walking away is not cruelty. And peace is not something you owe back to the people who tried to steal it from you. My parents thought I was the easy child. The quiet one. The one they could move into the garage, sue into fear, and shame into surrender. They never knew Grandma had been watching. They never knew she had saved every letter. They never knew the girl they ignored would become the woman holding the keys. And they never knew the strongest revenge would not be yelling, fighting, or begging them to understand. It would be this. A safe home. A clean lock. A life they cannot enter. And a silence so peaceful, it sounds like victory.